or good evening, CRCOG. I'm Pastor Anthony, and I'm coming at you live with another devotion. See, we've been going through this fast for a little while now, just a couple of days, and sometimes when we begin these fasts, desires begin to ramp up, and desires begin to take control of our thoughts, our actions, and it just starts to drive our everyday, patterns. And so, why are we fasting anyways? What's going on with this whole idea of fasting? What are we doing? Well, let me explain a little bit to you about why fasting is important. Traditionally, fasting is abstaining from food or choosing not to eat for a certain period of time so that you can spend that time focusing on God. Now, it's morphed and developed into different things over the years, but originally fasting was just abstaining from food. Now, why is abstaining from food, fasting from whatever it is, so important for me to unlock some sort of deeper connection with God the Father? Let me show you how the stomach was so powerful that it caused something to happen so significant that it's affecting billions of people today. Literally. So, in the Garden of Eden, God had set it up. Things were perfect. Adam and Eve were tending to the garden. They were going throughout their daily routines, and everything was a paradise. There wasn't sickness. There wasn't death. There wasn't anything like that. There wasn't turmoil and hard work and all of this stuff that a lot of us have to experience today. And God had set that up for you and for me. And Adam and Eve were the first recipients of it. And they were enjoying that Garden of Eden. But he said one thing to them. He said, Adam and Eve, you can have the fruit of any tree here in this garden. You can eat of that fruit, strawberries, blueberries, apples, whatever the case may be. You eat of that fruit. Enjoy it to your heart's content. There is one tree that I don't want you to partake of, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And if you take of that tree, you surely would die. And Adam and Eve, they're like, all right, cool. There's so many trees that we can have access to. So many things that we can eat that we don't have to worry about this. Now, many of you know when you tell a young child, or really sometimes you tell anyone, hey, don't do that, their mind immediately triggers over and they're like, I'm going to do that, right? I've done it with my son before. I said, St. Alexander, make sure you don't do this and that and the other. And before I ever say that stuff, he wasn't even paying attention to that object. He wasn't even getting involved in that. And then I opened my mouth and I said, hey, don't do this. And then all of a sudden he's aware and he's looking at it and he's like, I got to do that now because he said not to, right? It's just something intrinsic within our human nature, right? So God tells Adam and Eve, don't eat of this tree, and they're doing pretty well. And then the scripture tells us that one day Eve was around that tree. Eve was near the object, near the thing that God had said, don't partake of this. Don't eat this. And so she's there and she's looking at it. And it says that the devil comes to tempt her in the form of a serpent, and he says that she should eat it. He says, go ahead and take a bite. And she's like, no, God said that we surely would die if we did that. The Lord said not to do that. And he said, no, you surely will not die. And he begins to twist her mind. And then it says in the scripture that when she saw that it was good for food, she took of it and she ate. And then the story progresses on from there to the fall from paradise. They literally ate themselves out of house and home. Not only that, the ground became cursed and you have to work for your food. There was all kinds of punishment that came along with this fall from grace. If Eve had just controlled her stomach, controlled her desires, then we wouldn't be necessarily in the situation that we're in today. People for years, thousands of years, are paying the price for her not having her desires in check. As we fast forward to our modern day, there are much more things that we have access to that our desires pull us towards. Think about the one thing that continuously pulls you away from God, that desire that always gets in the way, that desire that causes you to look at things you shouldn't look at or to go partake in things that you shouldn't partake in. Those desires are things that when we begin to fast, get brought into check so that we can make sure we're focusing on the one thing that matters, and that is our relationship with God. See, desires go much further than just our hunger, but I think that in Scripture, when we're talking about hunger, it's showing us the most primal desire of any man or woman around. Those primal desires are the things that end up coming between us and God. See, you look at Esau. Jacob and Esau, they were twins in the Bible. Jacob was someone who would stay home and cook. And Esau was someone who would go out to the field and begin hunting. And it says one day that Esau came home and he was so hungry that he asked Jacob for a bowl of stew that he was making. And Jacob, he says, well, I'll give you this stew if you sell me your birthright. Sell me your double in portion of the inheritance. Sell me all the authority that you would get when our father would die. That is due to you because you're the firstborn son in this family. Sell me that, and then I'll give you one bowl of stew. Now you and I, we hear that and we say that's ridiculous. He's forfeiting his future for that one bowl of stew. And yeah, it is ridiculous, but I feel like many of us do it all the time. We forfeit the ultimate that God has created us for, the destiny that He put on our lives, and we forfeit it for something that's right in front of us. One simple experience, one small thing. And so Esau, he says, yeah, all right, I'll sell you my birthright. I'm about to die of hunger. You take my birthright. And it says, if you fast forward down in Scripture, you can see in Scripture where it shows that God introduces Himself to Moses and to the Israelite people when He goes to rescue them from 400 years of slavery. And He says, I'm the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. But if Esau had not sold his birthright, God would have introduced Himself on the scene using His name. He would have said, I'm the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Esau. Can you imagine? If Esau had known the destiny that God had for him, would he have given it up for that one bowl of stew? I certainly would hope not. And I know that I wouldn't want to. So as we're fasting, it's the purpose of removing those desires that block us from the ultimate thing that God has for us. So I would encourage you, as you continue on pushing through all the difficulties in this fast, remember why you're doing it. You're removing whatever it is, that desire that blocks you from direct communion with God. And you're getting yourself in a place where you can focus on the things that matter most. I love you guys. Have a great fast.